Hello, Coolman229 here with another Topic of the Week video. This week I'll be talking about the Sherlock Series 4 finale. Initially I was actually going to do a review of it, but then I got this topic that was about it, so I thought, nope, why don't I just say what I was going to say here? I mean, I still might do a review at some point, but I gotta talk about this because, oh boy. So, needless to say, there will be spoilers for all of Sherlock Series 4, including the Six Thatchers and the Lying Detective, not just the finale, the final problem. This week's topic was submitted by dorkballmcgee, and her topic is, can you express your opinions of the Sherlock finale, particularly how you would have handled the estranged sister plot? Okay. I love Sherlock. I really do. It's one of my favorite versions of Sherlock Holmes. And I honestly think it's a fantastic modern adaptation of the books and of the characters. I love Series 1, 2, and 3. Series 3 is my favorite, honestly. So when Series 4 came out, I mean, I even watched The Abominable Bride, and I really loved that episode too. So I was excited for Sherlock Series 4. And then it came out, and I kind of started feeling a little on it. The Six Thatchers was mostly good, outside of John texting another woman, and then Mary seemingly dying at the end of the episode. But then I'm like, you know what, that's going to be fake. Sure, Mary's going to come back. Then the Lying Detective came in. And the Lying Detective overall is a really good episode. And it's the best episode of Series 4. This has a couple issues, especially, talking about Mary's death. But again, so much about this was just, I felt it was building up to Mary coming back. And honestly, it felt like it was supposed to be. But then, the rest of the plot is actually really good. And, the fact that the Lying Detective is basically like, hey, what if... Because the whole point of that episode is, what if Sherlock actually doubted himself? What if he had come... Because he's always 100% confident in himself all the time. So, what if all of his deductions were fake and he was wrong and he actually imagined stuff? And that's one of his biggest conflict in this episode, which is really interesting, along with introducing us to a new villain at the very end. It's a really good episode. So then you get into the final problem, and that's just a pile of garbage. Oh my gosh. I don't know what happened. Moffat, Gaddis, what happened? Why? How do you screw this up so badly? Everything about this is... It's insultingly bad. Like, any problems that the Six Thatchers and the Lying Detective had could have been fixed with a really good finale. Basically revealing that any problems that you had were actually part of a bigger plot. And in fact, the whole thing about John texting this other woman, and he kind of was thinking of cheating on Mary, which is utterly ridiculous. Find out that he was being manipulated by Euros, Sherlock's evil sister. And as dumb as that sounds, when the Lying Detective revealed that, it was actually handled really well. Revealing that Euros was actually pulling the strings throughout the episode, and she was manipulating even Sherlock. Oh boy, she was terrifying. In the end, she takes John hostage and shoots him, and then that's how it ends, and you're just like, oh my gosh, where is this gonna go? And then you get to the final problem, and then it's like, it just skips over that, and it's like John just shows up, and he's without any problems, and he's just like, yeah, I was shot. Like, you were shot and you're just okay now? What? Ugh. And Euros, Euros was an interesting character when she was first introduced in The Lying Detective. When she reveals herself to John that she had killed his therapist, replaced her, and was giving him these therapy sessions without him knowing, there was anything wrong. Oh my gosh. When she manipulated Sherlock by pretending to be a client and then leading him on this, she basically put him on the right path, but she was playing him the whole time, and almost drove him crazy, believing that he had imagined all of that in a drug-induced hallucination. When she reveals herself, it's like this big, it's honestly the best plot reveal in this whole thing. And then you get to the Six Thatchers, not the Six Thatchers, the final problem, and Euros becomes nothing but a villain Sue. Oh my gosh, she is such a villain Sue in the final problem. She literally has, it's like, they don't want to say it, but she has mind control powers. It's played off like, she can get into your mind, but it's not, she literally can basically manipulate people seconds after meeting them, which, no, that's not how this works. Unless you have hypnotic abilities or mind control, you can't just 10 seconds after meeting someone have them start doing exactly what you want them to do. It's like, and this doesn't even match with what we know of her from The Lying Detective, because her manipulations in The Lying Detective make sense. They were cons. She spent time with this. She disguised herself. She pretended to be someone else. She was slowly learning someone, and was playing them and feeding them information. Like when she went off with Sherlock on the basic, more or less, a night on the town, and they're discussing, the case. Her manipulations are brilliant because they make sense. She knows how Sherlock operates. She's probably studied him ever since she got, she's probably, been studying him like Moriarty did. And so she's preying on basically the fact that he would assume that if a client came in, that they wouldn't be simply just straight up lying to him, providing him with an interesting case, and then also slowly feeding him this information in these clues that technically are right, but she made them up. So once Sherlock actually tries to present this evidence, he finds out that it was wrong, and he ends up a creek without a paddle, and he doesn't know how to handle that, because usually he deals in facts and logic, and when he realizes that his facts and logic are made up, he almost kills a guy because he doesn't know what he's supposed to do, because he knows that this guy is a serial killer, but he can't prove it because all of his information just went up in smoke. So when she plays him like that, when Euros' master plan of just screwing with Sherlock just because she could, that is terrifying. Then you get to the final problem, and she's just and it's literally even Sherlock is somehow now affected by her mind control. And I call it mind control because that's what it is. It is just mind control. I can't believe it. How do you screw up her character that badly? And then the entire episode ends up becoming some sort of Saw-style death trap where people are dying left and right, when there's this super ultra Alcatraz where she's trapped on, and she takes it over because she's been manipulating everyone the whole time. And one of the biggest insults was this episode made you think that Moriarty was back. Oh my gosh, when Moriarty, because it looks like when she takes over everything, it cuts to Moriarty arriving on the island via helicopter. He's coming in, he's dancing to music with his iPod, he's just like, yeah, and then he comes in, he's, doing everything, and then he goes and meets with Mycroft, and then it's 5 years later. That was a slap in the face. You you made us think that Moriarty was back, which should have happened. That should have been the reveal. But it's not. And then it's like, and it's not even really clear, because it makes it look like Euros, that one, Mycroft is stupid enough to let Euros and Moriarty talk to each other unsupervised. And then it's making me believe that Euros could trick Moriarty into doing things for her, which are, one, physically impossible, and two, something Moriarty would never fall for. Moriarty is too smart for that. But apparently, Euros is just so amazing and brilliant that she can just get him to do what she wants? How? And on top of that, she's like, oh, well, he made some recordings for me. How? And these recordings are supposed to be the source of the "Did you miss me?" message. And the angle that they're at could not have been achieved because Euros didn't have a camera on her. But, oh my gosh, this episode is just full of plot holes. And it's like, yeah, Moriarty's been dead the whole time. It was the worst possible. Like, if Moriarty literally rose from the dead, it would have made more sense than this. That's how bad it is. And one of the worst things that this episode does is outright lie to you. And there's, like, when Moriarty comes in, and just a few minutes later it reveals that it's just a flashback, that's tricking the audience. But the worst thing that this episode does is it shows us this girl on a plane, and it tricks you into thinking that Moriarty had basically knocked out everyone on that plane but this little girl. And this little girl is in trouble for the entirety of the episode, so Sherlock, Mycroft, and John have to save her. Alright, that's a pretty big dilemma. And Euros is, tricking them into doing her dirty, into basically just screwing with them by teasing them with the ability, okay, you can save her, but you need to follow my, you need to play my games. So they're doing it, and then at the end of the episode, it's revealed that this girl did not exist. A girl who we have on screen seen. It was revealed that she's some inner manifestation of Euros's internal conflicts. No. You do not lie to the audience like that. If we had never seen this girl, and Euros simply told us, oh, there's this girl in trouble, and then you hear her voice, and that's all you get, I could buy that being fake. But you show us this, and it cuts to her multiple times. And yeah, there are some times where it feels like, this seems a little odd, and it seems like a little odd that that things have been going on for several hours, and she hasn't had any problems with the flight. The flight's not over. But it lies to you. And what baffles me is that Moffat and Gatiss have done this before. Well, they've I know at least Moffat did, because in Doctor Who, when the episode that we're first introduced to Clara, when you find out the version of her that's a Dalek, we see her, we see Clara, and we see her in this, ship, and she's talking to the Doctor, and she's making soufflés and everything. Ultimately, the Doctor starts realizing there's something wrong here. And he's like, where are you getting all the supplies for the soufflés? And then she's just like, she can't answer that. Because then you find out that that's all in her mind, and that's all what the Doctor would imagine. So when you get that reveal that she's actually a Dalek, and she's basically been trapped in this delusional state, that's heavy hitting. This is just outright manipulation. This is tricking us into thinking that a plot is going on, and then at the last minute changing it. And it feels like this episode was rewritten a dozen times. This episode has so many changes in it. Like, it's constantly changing, almost scene to scene at times, what the episode is, and it's awful. There's no consistency in this final episode, at the very least with Six Thatchers and Lying Detective. You can feel some level of consistency between them. And plot threads that should be continued aren't, and plot threads are just literally sprouted out of nowhere. And the final problem has like a dozen different plot twists, and all of them are earth-shattering and make no sense. Because, hey, remember Redbeard, Sherlock's dog? It wasn't really a dog, and it went missing because Euros drowned it. But it's not really a dog because it was actually his best friend as a kid, who Euros, a little girl, trapped him, locked him in a well, and drowned him because she wanted to be Sherlock's friend, and he didn't pay enough attention to her. And this trauma and Sherlock's inability to solve this case caused him to retreat into the memories of having a dog, and this is the reason why he became a detective. Great, now we have some sort of bullcrap, grimdark, tragic backstory to the reason Sherlock is a detective. And it's not because he gets off of it like it always has been. It's because, he has some deep-rooted angst over it. Oh my gosh, this episode was so freaking exhausting. How do you screw this up that badly? And another issue that I had with this is the fact that at the end of The Lying Detective, Sherlock gets a text from Irene, and he reveals that he's been in contact with Irene this whole time, and that they occasionally meet. And oh my gosh, Irene coming back in the finale of Series 4. We've been waiting for this since Series 2. I mean, her showing up in Sherlock's Mind Palace in Series 3 was great, but her actually coming back, oh my gosh, it'd be great. And nothing ever comes from it. And it's like, and I almost feel like she was supposed to be involved in this episode when it's talking about the woman who loves Sherlock. And instantly John's like, Irene? And because he had been saying since at the end of The Lying Detective that Sherlock needs to just get with Irene. It's like, she loves you. You obviously have strong feelings for her. Just get together while you have the chance. Because he lost Mary, and at the time I thought supposedly lost Mary. So he's encouraging Sherlock to get with Irene because he may not know how much time they actually have left. And then it's like, oh no, the woman who loves Sherlock is Molly Hooper. Wait. What? You're telling me that you excluded Irene to put in Molly Hooper? Oh wow, way to just get rid of her character development. She's still in love with Sherlock, and on top of that, having Sherlock say "I love you" to her in order to save a girl that didn't exist. Basically screwing with her emotions, and they ultimately find out that none of this was real anyway. So now Molly Hooper has been totally emotionally screwed with. That's never even brought up again. That's the wonderful part. It's never brought up again. She doesn't have any ill will towards Sherlock. She doesn't have any, how can you treat me, callously all those times, and then come out and say, I love you, and then he doesn't even get a chance to explain why he did that. He doesn't get to say, okay, I was in a life or death situation, and I was trying to save someone who turns out to just be a figment of my evil sister's imagination. And I had to get you to say that you love me, and yeah, at that point, honestly, I'd probably slap him if he said that to me. Because at that point, this is just bad fan fiction. And that's what it is. And that's what annoys me so much, is that this is just bad fan fiction. This feels like someone in the Sherlock fandom was just writing bad fan fiction, and that's what the final problem was. At the very least, the Six Thatchers and The Lying Detective were decent episodes that, you know, and it's just like in the previous seasons. Like, sure, that there are occasionally a problem or two, but by the end of the season, those problems aren't that big of a deal. You know, it's like everything gets wrapped up and, you know, it's not really a problem. But this, any problem that the Six Thatchers and the Lying Detectives had ended up being exacerbated by the awfulness that is the final problem. In fact, in the last, like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes of the episode, it starts giving all these insane plot twists, like the whole Redbeard wasn't really a dog. It's, oh yeah, Redbeard was killed by Euros, and then, oh no, Redbeard wasn't really a dog, and then, you know, this girl isn't real, and in the very end, the most frustrating part is that Euros is treated as some little poor would-be baby who just wanted to be Sherlock's friend. Excuse me? This callous mass murderer, she's a serial killer who's killed multiple people, and just over the span of the episode, she kills 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 6 or so people, and literally talks about how she has absolutely no care for human life. And Sherlock doesn't put a bullet in her skull. Okay, he put a bullet in Magnus's skull. And that was treated as a big deal, but then Euros gets away with it? What? Because she's his sister? Like that would mean anything to Sherlock? With all the insults he tosses towards Mycroft, who actually does help him? And then at the end, she's back in prison, and then Sherlock goes and visits her so they can play violins together. Like, any of the good that this season could have had is just extinguished and obliterated by the final problem. The final problem is that this, and it plays off like a straight up ending. It doesn't tease anything. It doesn't say, oh, well, something else is coming. It literally just ends with Sherlock and John just going off solving cases together, and then it's Mary like, oh, I want my boys to just go off solving cases, having fun like that. It is the most disappointing way they could have ended this season, and oh my gosh, it's just awful. I don't even think I can stress just how awful it was watching this. Because as I was watching it, I just had this feeling when I started the episode, like, oh my gosh. Especially when it just basically cuts away from, you know, what you thought was going to happen. Oh, is John going to be a hostage? Is Sherlock going to have to track him down? No, they're just together at the beginning of the final problem, and they're confronting Mycroft after tricking him with a killer clown. And yeah, at that point I was starting to question the writing of this episode, and I swear it feels like it was rewritten. It feels like there was supposed to be a different episode, and parts of it were in it, but most of it was just scratched and rewritten in a few minutes. But even that doesn't explain why this episode is so awful. Like, seriously, Moffat and Gatiss are good writers. They have yet to disappoint me on this level ever. Even the stupidity of a handful of bits of Moffat's Doctor Who run, I mean, especially the death of Amy and Rory suddenly at the end of Angels Take Manhattan, or just a handful of stupid moments. Like, okay, yeah, some of it's annoying, but overall it hasn't been that bad enough to make me hate everything. But holy crap, this is just unnecessarily bad. It feels like they were trying to make it bad, and I don't understand. I don't understand how they can go from series 1, 2, and 3, which were fantastic, And then even the Six Thatchers and the Lying Detective felt decent and could have been great episodes had everything all been properly resolved. But that's not what happens. And it felt like they didn't even care. It felt like any fire that they had in their hearts for this series, a burning desire to write these cool episodes of Sherlock, was just gone. And that's what it feels like. It just feels like everything, the passion is gone. Because this feels so soulless. This whole episode feels soulless. And it feels like I'm so tired, just Sherlock becomes BFFs with her and rainbows and sunshines, I guess. Let's not resolve anything. Even though that's just what these episodes, that's what Sherlock always does. You introduce something in the first episode, you have continuing plot threads in the second episode, and then you resolve it in the third episode. It's what the show does. And even if you didn't feel any passion for it, you could have at least delivered a decently written episode. A decently written finale at the very least, but they didn't. And I hate this episode. I hate the final problem. Because this is everything that Sherlock is not. And a lot of people have straight up said that this episode did not feel like an episode of Sherlock. It felt like it was just taking something else. And it almost feels like they took a script for another show or another movie or something and they stuck it in there and then shoved Sherlock and John into it. Euros goes from being this really cool villain who, I mean, when she revealed herself to be Sherlock's sister, I was legitimately like, oh. And it just, the suspense, and because there's been speculation that there's a third Holmes sibling, and everyone thought it was a brother, but if it turns out, and okay, we have another sibling who turns out to be a sister, and she's evil, that's interesting. Even the plot thread of hinting that Mycroft was gonna get a girlfriend, that's an interesting little subplot. Where does it go? Well, it predictably went nowhere because all the important stuff was dropped, and we're just suddenly stuck with a finale that doesn't even know what it's supposed to be. And my opinion on this episode, my opinion on the final problem, it's garbage. It's awful. It would require a complete and utter rewrite. And sure, with the Six Thatchers and the Lying Detective, they do need a handful of small rewrites, but it's just changing a little thing here, little thing there. Other than that, it's pretty good. But with the final problem, it's fundamentally wrong because it feels like it fundamentally doesn't belong. It feels like fundamentally it came from a different place than the Six Thatchers or the Lying Detective. Because if you have this line that the episodes are following, and then boom, now that's what the final problem feels like. It's just bad. I mean, first off, it's bad enough that you tease stuff like Irene Adler coming back, and Sherlock getting with Irene cannot tell you the explosion for the Adlock fandom from that. And then the ultimate disappointment when she's not even relevant to the episode, so why even bring her up? Just... This episode was manipulative. This episode was badly written. It was full of plot holes that you could fly a 747 through. It's just mind-numbingly bad. It's fundamentally lacks any real narrative cohesion, and not even just with the rest of the episodes. It's just with itself. Because you have so many things that are happening, and the whole Alcatraz trapped on Super Alcatraz, which I don't even remember what they called it in this episode. It's like, there's so many interesting elements to it. And that I will say that. The episode had some interesting parts to it. When Mycroft, Sherlock, and John infiltrate this place without, because they don't have permission to go there, even with Mycroft, but then they trick their way into it. That was some pretty neat stuff. The whole scene where Euros flies a motion detecting bomb into the 22-1 Baker Street, or B Baker Street, and then Mycroft, Sherlock, and John are all, debating on where, they're just figuring out the plan of action, and they all use their combined brains to figure out who's gonna go where, who's gonna do what, and where Miss Hudson is. Okay, so we know that she's right here, and in a few minutes she'll leave, so we'll wait. It's there are good elements, but overall it's just bad. A few good things doesn't save something that's full of absolute crap. And it even ruins one of the few good things that honestly are one of the good things from the previous episodes. Was Euros. Turning her from a brilliant a masterminding long con who was heavily hinted at as working with Moriarty, which would have been a fantastic way. Hey, how did he get information on Sherlock? Oh, well, he knew his evil sister. And it could have involved her in that in a way that felt organic. Yeah, okay, yeah, I've almost forgot about this part of how I would have handled that sister plot. Honestly, if I was handling this, if I was writing this episode myself, I would reveal that she and Moriarty is alive, that he tricked Sherlock into thinking he was dead. Now, how that would have happened, I'd have to think about, but, that she and him worked together, and they were partners in crime, and that, she has this hatred of Sherlock for, whatever, because she's crazy, I guess, and then he has this fixation on Sherlock and wanting to ruin him, so they have this combined, hatred of Sherlock, and it makes them work together well, and if she was trapped someplace, which makes sense, he busts her out of there, and then they work together. But making, Mycroft wouldn't be involved in her detainment, because Mycroft knowing about all this doesn't make sense with everything else in the show. Because you try to put that in, and pull this whole prison straight out of Uranus. It's no, that's not how this works. And it would have been, it would have been her, John and Mycroft, Sherlock and Mycroft rescue John, and then Mary comes back and helps, them out and reveals that she knew something was going on, and she did what Sherlock did in the Series 2 finale. He faked his death to go take care of problems. Then you just have Irene come back and have some emotional closure with Sherlock and Irene. And that, and that she knew that, Moriarty was coming back. So then they end up working against Moriarty and, Euros. And I wouldn't know exactly how to, depending on if you wanted another season or not. Which, honestly, I wouldn't even really want another season. That, you just settle it right then and there, or at the very least have Moriarty and Euros come back again as villains. But just the ideas there, a lot of that I just kind of came up with right now. A lot of that would have been a lot better than what we got, because what we got was just awful. Well, I think that's about it for this topic. I'm exhausted thinking about this episode. It just pisses me off so much that a show's so good it could fall so hard, so fast, out of absolutely nowhere. If you want to watch last week's topic video, you can check that out here. If you want to watch next week's topic video, you can check that out here when I get that done. If you want to submit a topic, just if you're on Tumblr, send me an ask, and you can just put topic and whatever you want me to talk about. And if you're on YouTube, you can simply comment below what you want me to talk about. Just make sure to follow the rules that I'll be posting down below on both Tumblr and YouTube. And thank you for watching.